All right, so you're already thinking about it, right? When was the last time that you said, wow? I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to think about when was the last time you said, wow? And I got a good one, man. A few months ago, I was on the beach in Oceanside, and I was looking from a third-story building at the waves crashing, and you know what jumped out of the waves? A dolphin. And this dolphin was like surfing through the waves. You want to see a video of it? Yeah. Let's see it. Isn't that wow? So cool. Isn't that beautiful? Everybody say wow. Okay, that wasn't Oceanside. Those were Australian dolphins. They surf better than Oceanside dolphins. But I will tell you, the thing that makes me really say wow is a good sunset. Anybody see the sunset last night? Man, it's a little hazy, a little cloudy. Get all those pinks and oranges. My wife, Amy, always makes fun of me because when we have people at our house and the sun is setting, I'll grab the people who are at our house and go to the backyard and say, hey guys, let's watch the sunset together. And then we just go out there and we sit there quietly, and it's a little bit awkward. But I always love it because I just enjoy a good sunset. It makes me say, wow. Anybody else say wow when you look at the sunset? Oh, it's beautiful. Can I just tell you, people have been saying wow all throughout history. Just imagine for a second the angels who got to watch God create the universe. I bet they said wow. Can you imagine being Adam and watching God create Eve? Wow. Seeing a brand new person in front of you that God created. Man, think about for a second, every generation has said wow at the beauty of creation. If you think about it for a second, I would imagine that Noah probably said wow both in amazement and in terror when God brought a global flood. I mean, Moses said wow multiple times, right? I'm sure that when he saw this burning bush that wasn't actually burning up, that had God's presence in it, that was a wow moment. I mean, if you think about God parting the Red Sea so they walked on dry land, that was a pretty big wow moment. And then all week at camp, we've been reading and studying and singing and learning some verses that King David wrote. And he wrote these verses in Psalm 36 to help God's people say wow. And so kids, you've been learning about these verses. We're going to bring mom and dad in on it. If you haven't been at kids camp, it's okay. We can all say wow together. But I'm going to read these verses from Psalm 36, verses 5 and 6. Man, I love this passage. It says, your love, Lord, reaches to the heavens. Your faithfulness to the skies. Your righteousness is like the highest mountains. Your justice is like the great deep. So this passage that I just read and that you helped me read, it talks about four big ideas about who God is. Love, faithfulness, righteousness, and justice. And I love it because when you see these four things, you're actually seeing what God is like. So the first one is love. And this passage is translated as love, but it's actually translated lots of words in the Old Testament. This word, the Hebrew word is hazdeka. It's a possessive form of the very simple word chesed. Everybody say chesed. Chesed is the first word in history that was ever used to mean grace. Everybody say grace. Anybody know what grace is? Grace is when you get something you... That's right, when you get something you don't deserve. So the grace of God, the loving kindness of God, the love of God is what it's saying, reaches to the heavens. Do you know why it says heavens and not just heaven? Is there more than one heaven? Yes, actually. According to ancient Israeli people, there were three kinds of heavens. And so this is kind of cool to think about. The first heaven is the sky. It's what we see, it's the atmosphere. The second heaven is space. It's where all the stars and planets are. And then the third heaven is the spiritual realm. And even though no one can reach all the way, like let's just try. Can we take a little stretch break? Everybody stand up. Stretch. You can reach pretty high. Some of you are not reaching very high. Doesn't it feel good to take a stretch break? How many times during a sermon do you get to do this, right? Come on, take advantage, side to side. Oh, it feels great. Okay, so it stretches. Go ahead and have a seat. The love of God reaches. We can't reach to the heavens, but God's love can reach all the way to the sky and to the space and to the spiritual realm. It reaches the heavens. It's beautiful. The next thing it talks about is God's faithfulness. It says it stretches to the sky. Do you know faithfulness? It just means God is a good friend. Isn't that great? God is a good friend. Anybody here ever had a friend that wasn't a good friend to you? Can I tell you, like, every single person in your life is going to let you down at some point or another. But God will never let you down because his faithfulness stretches to the sky. The next thing it says about God is God's righteousness is like mighty, highest mountains. Mountains are immovable unless you're Jesus. Okay. and they are majestic. And I'm not just talking about like the hills of San Marcos that we have around here. I'm talking about those mountains that are thousands of feet in the air, the ones that still have snow on them for a long time after it snows. Those are mountains. And when you look at a mountain, I want you to think about this. When you look at a mountain, every time you look at a mountain, you were always meant to think about the righteousness of God. Because this is what God is like. God is strong. God is secure. You can trust God's love. You can trust in his righteousness. His righteousness is higher than any human righteousness. And his righteousness is secure, just like a mountain. Can rain wash away a mountain? No. And neither can anything wash away God's righteousness. God is perfect. Whenever we say God is righteous, what we're saying is God does what is good and right and fair every single time. His righteousness is like the highest mountain. And then the last thing it talks about is God's justice. Everybody say justice. Man, justice is good. You know what justice means? Justice means every wrong will be made right. And God's justice is like the great deep. It's like the ocean. Anybody here, have you ever been to the beach, and when you go, like you're there for the whole day, but you put your stuff a little bit too close to the water? Yeah. What happens when you do that? Everything just gets soaked, right? Water comes in. You know why, right? Because the tide goes out and the tide comes in. And you don't always know how fast. I mean, you can look at like the reports to see how fast the tide is going out, but when you go to the beach, none of us are checking that, right? So I want you to think about how nothing can stop the tide from coming back in. Just like how nothing can stop the justice of God from coming back in, just like the tide. And I want you to think about this. When you see something wrong, or when you feel something wrong, when someone does something wrong to you, when we talk about God's justice being like that tide, what I'm saying is God won't let every wrong be wrong forever. He makes wrongs right. And I'm going to be honest with you, sometimes he won't make every wrong right until heaven. And so we won't get to see every wrong made right here on earth, but we're not just looking forward to this earth. We're looking forward to eternity with him. And so ultimate justice is going to come in heaven. God cares about you when you are wronged. And there is justice for you, that every wrong will be made right. So his love reaches to the heavens. His faithfulness goes to the skies. His righteousness is like the highest mountain, and his justice flows like the ocean's tides. So I want you to think for a second about what you said wow about. And probably it was something you can see with your eyes. But we as Jesus followers, we've got to retrain our brains, because the biggest wow moment you will ever experience is seeing the love of God. The biggest wow moment. If you want to say wow the biggest wow you can possibly have. It's actually not about anything you can see with your eyes. And so I made a little graph to show you, like, when you see one thing, there's actually a bigger wow thing behind that one thing. Let me show you. So let's just look at this. So the top left quadrant, it has the stars and galaxies and all the solar systems that you can see out in space. This is the heavens, right? When you look at space and you look at the heavens, that was meant to show us about God's love that reaches beyond anything we could ever reach. And then if you look at the top right, that beautiful sunset stretches the skies. God's faithfulness. He is a good friend. It stretches to the skies. And when you see the mountains are strong, the mountains are secure, the mountains are high. It was meant to show us the righteousness of God, that He does the right thing. He does what is fair every single time. It's beautiful. And when you go to the beach and you see the tide go in and the tide come out, it was meant to show us and remind us that God is just. God's justice goes out and comes in. He will make every right thing wrong. So the hard thing is, you can't actually see those things, but when you see what's in creation, when you see what God made, it was meant to remind you of God's love and faithfulness and righteousness and justice. And so, when we do this, when we train our brains to think about God's love every time we look up in space, think about God's faithfulness every time we see a beautiful sky, think about God's righteousness every time we see a mountain, think about God's justice every time we see the beach, we begin to see more than you can see. Kids are really good at this. Anybody in here have a great imagination? Man. Parents, don't you love, most of the time, love seeing your kids' amazing imaginations? Kids are the best. Do you know why God gave you an imagination? So that you can imagine Him. Because we can't see Him with our eyes, but we can see everything He made. He gave us an imagination. No animals have an imagination. Only humans have the ability to imagine something that isn't right in front of them. And the reason God gave us our imagination is so that we could imagine Him. I want to tell you about a little boy named Calvin that used to be in cartoons. Did you know that cartoons weren't always on your iPad? They used to be on TV, and then before that, they were on newspaper. You would open the newspaper to read the cartoons. And this is Calvin. Calvin has a pet tiger named Hobbs. Calvin and Hobbs is what the cartoon's called. Hobbs is actually a stuffed tiger, but Calvin just imagines he is a live, ferocious tiger. And I want to read you this Calvin and Hobbs cartoon because I think it's really cute. Hobbs, want to see my transmogrifier? I think I said that right. I didn't know you had a transmogrifier. I just got it. You step into this chamber, set the appropriate dials, and it turns you into whatever you'd like to be. It's amazing what they can do with corrugated cardboard these days, isn't it? Does anyone think the transmogrifier actually works? I'm going to put my hand down because I do not believe the transmogrifier actually works. I think it's just a box, and I think that Calvin is just using his imagination, which is a beautiful thing. You see, the things that Calvin imagines, they're really cool and really special and fun, but they're not real. The thing that we are imagining, when we use our imagination to think about who God is and His love and faithfulness and righteousness and justice, we are imagining something that is more real than anything you'll ever see in your life. Yes. And so, grown-ups, don't stop using your imaginations to imagine who God is and imagine what He is and how we can learn from Him. Because when you do this, when you set your sights, not just on what's out there in the world, but what's on beyond the world into the spiritual realm, it actually starts to change who you are. You see, the truth is, you don't best see God's love through space. You don't see God's faithfulness best through the sky. You don't see His righteousness best through the mountains. You don't see His justice best at the beach. The best way people can see who God is through us. When you set your sights and you focus on who God is and His love and His faithfulness and His righteousness and His justice, you start to live it out. And people see the love of God in you. And they see His faithfulness through you. They say, wow, that person's a good friend. I think that's what God is like. And they see God's righteousness in you. Not every time. We're going to mess up. We're not perfectly righteous like Jesus was. But they see God's justice whenever you're making wrongs right. So this is our job. It isn't just to believe this. It isn't just to see this. It's to live it out right here in front of everyone. You see, we talked about 3 circles this week, and I don't have my whiteboard that I planned on having. But do you remember what was in the first circle? A heart. And in the first circle is the world the way God created the world. And it was perfect, and his love was perfect. His faithfulness was perfect. All righteousness, everything was righteous. Everything was just in the world God made. But do we live in this world right now? No, there's a second world, isn't there? There's a second world. What did it have in it, kids? It was broken, right? The second world is the world that we actually live in right now. Because our love does not measure up to God's love. We are lacking, aren't we? If you look around, the relationships in your life, as much as your parents and your siblings and your friends try, they can't love like God. They can't fully show us and be the faithfulness that God has. Our righteousness is broken, isn't it? Our justice is not perfect. It's broken. But then there's this third circle. Who knows what's in the third circle? There's a cross in the third circle. Why is there a cross in the third circle? Because God sent Jesus, his son, to show us the perfect embodiment of the love of God and the faithfulness of God. Jesus was a good friend. You know what they called him? They called him a friend of sinners. So if you've ever made a mistake, Jesus wants to be a friend to you. He's a perfect friend. His faithfulness is perfect. His righteousness was perfect. He was never not righteous. His justice was perfect. Jesus brought this perfect embodiment of what God's love and faithfulness and justice and righteousness was always meant to be. So when we trust in him and we say, you know what? I want to live my life believing in Jesus and trusting Jesus for everything. That's when God starts to transform your heart and give you a new life where you're following Jesus. And some of you are like, you know what? I think I've already started that. Because when you start believing in Jesus, it changes your thinking. It gives you a new heart. And you start living out these things, the love of God, the faithfulness of God, the righteousness of God, the justice of God. You know why people like coming to church? Because they see these things in your life. This is why we want to invite you back every single week. Because we want to do this as a community. We want to do this as a family. And you're not always going to do it right. We're going to fall short. But when we fall short, let's keep looking to Jesus because Jesus did it right every single time. We really do believe that you were made for more than what is right in front of you. And that's why we want to see more than we can see. That's why we want to focus on who God is. So we're going to take a minute before we leave. This next song that we're going to sing doesn't have any emotions. At least I don't think it does. But I'm going to invite the band back up. And I just want you, wherever you are, to just sit. Not your band, DJ, sorry. You come up next, though. After we dismiss, if you guys want to hang around, the youth band has one more song they want to play for you. But invite the band up. We're going to pray. And then we're just going to sing this song. And it talks about how you were made for more than what you can see. And so I hope that we can go home today, after the pizza party, actually. After the pizza party, I hope we can go home and we can live out what God is calling us to be and what he's calling us to see beyond all the beauty of creation.